I arrived at Ung Tian Villa to work as a nanny. On my third day, I accidentally killed the owner's pet dog. I went online for help, and the most liked comment was to kill the owner too, so she could reunite with her dog. I didn't dare, but I was truly at a dead end. 3 days ago, I posted online, bragging about finding the perfect job. High salary, easy work, free room and board, 25 million a month just taking care of Mrs. Song and her pet dog. Yet 3 days later, I was frantically posting for help, having accidentally killed the owner's dog. What should I do? In my panic, thick blood smeared across my phone screen, making me even more agitated. This feeling peaked when I read the responses from netizens. Haha, how could you cause such a huge mess? Just crawl out and bark, woof woof, when the owner comes home. Let her think the dog turned into a human. This comment vividly illustrated the saying, when one person is in trouble, 8 directions descend into chaos. Some also advised me to honestly admit my fault. I immediately rejected that idea. Mrs. Song treated that dog like her own child. If she knew the truth, she'd kick me out instantly. So wouldn't the past 3 days have been for nothing? I didn't want to lose this perfect job. Mrs. Song wouldn't be back for over an hour. I couldn't delay any longer. Just as I was about to throw my phone, a comment surged to the top. Just kill the owner too. Let her reunite with the dog. Just find some rat poison, stuff it into the dog's stomach, and cook it up as a meal for the owner. Then, you know the rest. You didn't do anything wrong. The dog just went outside and accidentally ate rat poison. How would you know? The owner told you to cook the dog because it was disobedient. I wouldn't dare argue, right? The likes on this comment shot up. The thread below became utterly frantic. It was so detailed, I couldn't tell if the person was joking or giving real instructions. Yama himself would wake up startled to find himself demoted to second place. I trembled as I replied to this person. I don't dare. The other party immediately replied, asking me to tell them what happened. I swallowed hard, looked around the kitchen, and began to recall. At 8:00 a.m., Mrs. Song went out for her run. Her routine was to grab coffee after running. Around 10:00 a.m., she would come home for brunch. I had to finish walking the dog, feeding it, and preparing brunch within those 2 hours. The 2 days prior, everything had gone smoothly. But today, Eric, for some reason, suddenly went wild. Eric is the name of her golden retriever. He ate more luxuriously than I did, never touching dry kibble. Every 3 days, someone would bring him fresh raw beef. This morning, I had just picked up a handsaw, intending to cut some meat, when Eric anxiously clawed at me. I put the saw down, intending to get a sausage from the fridge to coax him. Who knew, as soon as I turned my back, Eric did something that made the saw suddenly start. The blade fell from the table to the floor, then bounced up. With a asterisk whoosh asterisk, the blade ripped a gash across the dog's head. Eric didn't even have time to whimper before collapsing to the floor. I froze, the sausage in my hand thudding to the ground. The horrific scene before me stunned me. Blood splattered everywhere, staining a corner of the kitchen red. Nausea rose in my throat, but if I threw up, the already difficult-to-clean kitchen would become an even greater disaster. I had to force it down. Pacing around the kitchen, my foot stepped on something soft. I lifted my foot to see it was one of his eyeballs. Annoyed, I wiped my shoe on the doorframe and turned back to read the top comment. Mrs. Song lives alone. I never see any friends visiting her. I startled, realizing I was unconsciously considering this option. Taking a deep breath, I shook my head vigorously. Just then, the same person commented again. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect you to actually believe it. You really are honest. Just throw the dog's body away and say it ran off, problem solved. Actually, it wasn't foolproof. Mrs. Song would still blame me. But at least it would buy me some time, maybe even enough to buy an identical dog and claim I found Eric. I breathed a sigh of relief and set to work. Blood was splattered all over the kitchen, even on the ceiling, but this wasn't a major concern. Mrs. Song never went into the kitchen. I could dispose of the dog's body and then clean up gradually. I was also covered in blood and urgently needed to shower and change. As for Eric, my gaze lingered on his corpse. After a moment of hesitation, I decided to bag him first. I found a large black plastic bag, picked up the detached skull cap and put it in the bag first, then strained to lift Eric's body. He was so heavy and I was just a 45-kilogram girl. With a slight slip, he tilted to one side and the liquids inside spilled onto the floor. I swore under my breath, "Damn it!" Immediately, a thump 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 sound echoed and I almost dropped the body. I turned towards the sound, the pendulum clock in the corner. Rich people and their endless peculiarities. The minute hand pointed exactly to 9:00 a.m. Mrs. Song wouldn't be back for another hour. Daring not to delay, I quickly shoved Eric into the bag. Then I began to clean the kitchen. Standing on a chair, I reached with a rag to the ceiling. The bloodstains had already begun to dry and harden. I wiped away the outer layer, but dark brown stains remained. Just then, the doorbell suddenly rang. My heart pounded. Had Mrs. Song come home early? What was I going to do now? As I hesitated, the doorbell rang continuously as if demanding a life, and my face and clothes were still covered in blood. How could I open the door? Luckily, an unfamiliar man's voice from outside made me breathe a sigh of relief. "Isn't Mrs. Song home? It's been so long. Mrs. Song, I've brought the meat." I suddenly remembered Mrs. Song had mentioned that someone delivered this specialty meat every 3 days. She believed this type of meat carried no sin, making one more compassionate when eaten. This was my first time receiving it, as I hadn't started working here last time. I pressed myself against the smart doorbell screen, my voice a muffled whisper. "Mrs. Song isn't home. Please leave it at the door." The man, a burly guy, looked confused and patted his forehead. "Ah, you're the new maid, right? Open the door so I can carry the meat in. It's very heavy, you won't be able to lift it." Time was ticking by, I couldn't waste another minute. I continued playing the helpless victim. "No, thank you, I can get it myself. I don't know you, so I don't dare open the door." As soon as I finished speaking, the man chuckled. "It's fine, I've been delivering meat to Mrs. Song for years. Even Eric knows me. If you let Eric out, he'll wag his tail immediately." "Eric, Eric," he called out loudly. I froze, anger surged to my head. Seeing my prolonged silence, he grew suspicious. "Are you doing something shady? If you don't open the door, I'm calling Mrs. Song." My heart pounded wildly, my mind spinning. Just then, I saw the bath towel beside me. A plan flashed into my mind. 3 minutes later, as the man pulled out his phone, about to dial, I slightly opened the door a crack. The man instinctively looked up. Through the gap, I exposed my bare shoulder, my head wrapped in a bath towel, drops of water rolling down my skin. He froze, his face flushing red, and he turned away. "Sorry, miss, I didn't know you were bathing." I pretended to be upset. "Well, if you really can't leave it outside, then please bring it in." He stammered. No, I'm leaving now. You can get it yourself later, okay?" Before he finished, he had vanished around the corner. I breathed a sigh of relief, quickly hauled the box of meat into the house, and checked the clock. Only half an hour left, no time to clean the kitchen. I decided to lock the kitchen door. Mrs. Song never went in there anyway, so she wouldn't discover the scene inside. Then I went to the bathroom, intending to take a quick shower. Just as I took off my shirt, my phone rang. Mrs. Song was video calling. I cursed this unlucky day under my breath. My hair still had bloodstains, and Mrs. Song, being extremely careful, would surely notice. I quickly rinsed my hair and frantically pressed the answer button. On the other end, Mrs. Song was already suspicious. "Audrey, why did it take so long? Wait, why are you bathing in the middle of the day?" I forced a smile. "Eric accidentally bumped into me earlier, and I got dirty, so I took a quick shower. It won't affect my work, Mrs. Song." But immediately after, Mrs. Song spoke again. "Then let Eric answer the phone." My heart stopped. What kind of dog answers a phone? I continued to argue. "Eric is tired from playing. He's sleeping. Is there something you need, ma'am? Actually, I wanted to ask how much longer until you come home." Fortunately, Mrs. Song didn't insist on the dog answering. After a moment of hesitation, she said, "All right, I wanted him to choose a chew toy, so I'll just buy both pink and blue." Off-screen, I clenched my fists until they cracked. These annoying rich people. Why bother choosing? Just buy them all and be done with it. After a minute of hesitation, I bravely asked, "Mrs. Song, are you still coming back at 10 o'clock today?" She glanced at me with suspicion. "Why do you ask?" I grinned. "So I can prepare the steak for Eric earlier." It just reminded me that today's meal hadn't been prepared yet, but then Mrs. Song thought for a moment and said, "No need to prepare anything today." I was overjoyed. Finally, something went smoothly today. After hanging up, I hummed as I showered, making sure the kitchen door was securely locked. The only problem was I couldn't find one of Eric's eyeballs. But there was no more time. I planned to look for it later. I hauled the dog's body into the car trunk. Mrs. Song treated me quite well, even lending me her car. Although it was the cheapest Audi in the garage, it was prestigious enough on the road. I awkwardly drove the car out of the garage, heading straight for the gate. As long as I dealt with this dog's body, I could keep my job. A corner of my mouth turned up, but immediately after, the smile vanished. A crowd surged into the gate. Men and women mingled. Mrs. Song was smiling proudly among them. A few keywords reached my ears. Party? Let loose. I brought yellowfin tuna to cook in your kitchen. My eyes widened in horror. No wonder I didn't need to prepare a meal. This woman had friends and was throwing a party. Mrs. Song saw me. She waved and I slammed on the brakes. Audrey, where are you going? How can you leave Eric home alone? Cold sweat ran down my temples, my hands trembled violently. Before I could answer, Mrs. Song narrowed her eyes at me suspiciously. Why are you so tense? Are you stealing something? As she spoke, her gaze darted towards the car trunk. Almost simultaneously, my foot was on the accelerator. I was truly out of options. If Mrs. Song knew I killed the dog, I wouldn't just be fired, I'd also have to pay a huge compensation. So just as I was about to hit the gas and speed away, an idea flashed. This Mrs. Song was a devout Buddhist, emphasizing compassion and filial piety. So I blurted out, "My father is gravely ill. I want to ask permission to visit him in the hospital." Oh, of course, it was a lie, but how would she know? If she just nodded in agreement, I could take the dog's body to dispose of it immediately. Who knew, what seemed like a foolproof plan hit a snag. Mrs. Song, who was always righteous and moral, now frowned at me. To ask for time off, you must give at least a day's notice. Doing it so suddenly will affect work. I find you very irresponsible. I gaped. Where was her compassion now? Fortunately, thanks to that excuse, Mrs. Song no longer paid attention to the car trunk. Seeing my silence, Mrs. Song softened her tone. Of course, I won't stop you from fulfilling your filial duty. All right, I'll give you a day off tomorrow, okay? Although it was a question, her tone allowed no refusal. I sighed inwardly and obediently drove the car back to the parking lot. Eric and what remained of him were still in the trunk. I had to be extremely careful. I found the most secluded spot, parked the car, then quickly returned to the house, afraid they would discover the secret in the kitchen. As soon as I walked in, I heard Mrs. Song repeatedly calling Eric. "Eric, where's my darling?" My heart pounded in my chest. Seeing me return, Mrs. Song asked, "Where's Eric? Bring him out to greet the guests." In my panic, I found it a little funny. Dogs have to socialize too, but I showed no expression, just respectfully nodded, then pretended to search around the house. Actually, I was walking around and thinking. If I said Eric ran off because he was too playful, Mrs. Song would still blame me. I heard this dog was worth hundreds of thousands. I didn't want to pay. But fate helped me. They were gathering, eating, and going in and out chaotically. If someone just forgot to close the door, I could use the excuse that Eric ran out. At that point, Mrs. Song probably wouldn't dare blame her friends. Thinking of this, I was overjoyed. So I calmly told Mrs. Song, "Eric is running around in the backyard and refuses to come in." Fortunately, this villa was huge with a vast garden, so Mrs. Song couldn't go searching everywhere for the dog. It wouldn't suit her status, so she just nodded. "Then call him back when it's time to eat." While obediently listening to their conversation, I poured water for the guests. When I reached the only male guest, a whimper suddenly sounded at his feet. "Whimper, whimper," I flinched. Looking down, I saw a dog lying at the guest's feet. It was a Vietnamese native dog. The male guest's name was Julian. From previous observation, he had a complex relationship with Mrs. Song, but why would he raise such a worthless dog? Most dangerously, the dog seemed very afraid of me. It cowered on the floor, whimpering and backing away little by little. Its cautious, terrified eyes stared at me. Julian bent down and chuckled. "Sonny, why are you so scared? Your tail is tucked all the way down." Everyone's eyes turned towards us. I knew it was probably because I showered in a hurry, so I still carried Eric's blood scent, but I didn't panic. Lying, at first, I was awkward. Later, I got used to it, so I just smiled and explained, "Some dogs are naturally afraid of strangers. Eric was also afraid of me at first, but he got used to me after a while. How about I take him to the backyard to play with Eric?" Julian looked up at me for a moment, then smiled. "That's fine." I led the native dog out of the room. When no one was looking, I dropped my fake smile and kicked the dog out the back door. "Get out." Just after chasing away the dog that almost exposed my secret to the backyard, Mrs. Song ordered me to wash some fruit. I suppressed my annoyance. The fruit was in the fridge, and the fridge was in the kitchen. Glancing around, confirming everyone was in the living room, I said, "Yes, I'll go right away." I intended to get the fruit quickly so no one would enter the kitchen, but unexpectedly, Julian also stood up. "I'm coming too. I promised to use your kitchen today to make yellowfin tuna." My heart tightened and I quickly changed my tone. "Sorry, Mrs. Song, I misremembered. The kitchen door is broken today. I haven't had time to call a repairman. It can't be opened right now." Mrs. Song was annoyed. "The door is broken and you didn't call a repairman right away? How embarrassing." "Call Mr. Wu immediately. He can fix these things too." Mr. Wu was the person who delivered the meat to Mrs. Song. I was about to find an excuse to refuse when I heard Julian help me out. No rush, I have grilling equipment in my car, we can grill and eat in the yard. Mrs. Song's expression softened, and she kissed Julian as a reward. You are the most thoughtful. Julian wrapped an arm around Mrs. Song's waist and whispered, So, can I stay tonight? Mrs. Song seemed a little swayed but still shook her head. You go home. Julian was slightly disappointed but didn't force it. The two of them caressed each other for a while, then went up to the second-floor bedroom. I quickly went back to the kitchen to look for Eric's missing eyeball, but unfortunately found nothing. When I returned to the living room door, I heard contemptuous voices inside. How long has Mrs. Song's husband been dead, and she's already eagerly flirting with a young man? From everyone's conversations, I pieced together their relationship. It turned out Julian was once a senior manager in Mr. Song's company. After Mr. Song passed away, Julian helped Mrs. Song keep the company and then voluntarily stepped into the background, becoming her lover. Everyone said Julian was captivated by her beauty, not even caring about his future. I listened intently. Suddenly, a voice echoed behind me. What are you listening to? It was Mrs. Song and Julian. They returned looking disheveled, with ambiguous red marks on Mrs. Song's neck. I stammered, Nothing. Just then, the native dog appeared from nowhere. Its front paws clung to the coffee table, emitting whimpering sounds. A woman casually picked up a piece of dried meat from the table to tempt it. Want some? What's this? Immediately after letting go of the dried meat, the dog opened its mouth, and something plopped onto the coffee table. Mrs. Song had now approached the coffee table. She frowned and picked up the object. What is this? My pupils contracted. It was the eyeball Eric had lost. Almost simultaneously, Mrs. Song held the eyeball in her hand. At first, she didn't recognize it until she turned it over, and the dark, black pupil stared directly into her eyes. Mrs. Song froze for 3 seconds, then screamed. Ah, ah, ah! She startled and threw the eyeball onto the coffee table. The others also realized what was in front of them. In an instant, screams, shouts, and the sound of overturned tables and chairs filled the room. In my heart, there was only one thought: I've lost my job. In the midst of the chaos, I pulled out my phone, looking for the person who had instructed me in the initial post. I sent a private message. If I haven't had time to move the dog's body, what should I do? But the system announced that this user had deleted their account. I was stunned. Mrs. Song had now recovered her senses, screaming hysterically. Murderer! Just as her eyes were about to fix on me, Julian suddenly spoke. It doesn't look like a human eye. I quickly interjected. Right, it's a cow's eye. Everyone's eyes turned to me. I tried my best to continue the deception. Mrs. Song, it's like this. This morning, Mr. Wu delivered meat, and there was a cow's eye in it. Eric loved it and kept playing with it in his mouth. Everything fit perfectly. I was a genius. Mrs. Song was still startled, but she couldn't stop her voice from rising. How could you give him such a disgusting thing to play with? Immediately. Now throw this thing away and take Eric to bathe. I wanted to jump for joy. Eric never bathed at home. Mrs. Song hated dog hair flying everywhere. So, finally, I had an opportunity to take the dog's body away. I picked up the eyeball with my bare hands. Everyone shied away as I passed. I left the living room as quickly as possible, afraid I'd burst out laughing if I delayed a second longer. I threw the eyeball into the black plastic bag in the car trunk, clapping my hands in satisfaction. However, a voice that made my heart stop suddenly rang out. I still think it looks more like a dog's eye than a cow's eye. I turned. It was Julian. Without a word, he approached, rummaging through the plastic bag. The stench of blood made him stumble. He dry-heaved a few times, then looked at me. So the kitchen door isn't broken either, is it? I bet it's not looking too good in there, huh? I looked up at him pitifully. Can you keep this a secret for me? I didn't mean to, it was just an accident. Julian stared at me intently. Mrs. Song cherishes that dog deeply, treats it like her own child. Inwardly, I scoffed, nonsense. Can you let me go? I don't need this job anymore. At this point, I just wanted to escape quickly. But contrary to my expectations, Julian shook his head. No, you have to stay and help me get something. Julian threatened me, forcing me to sneak into Mrs. Song's study and steal a file from her computer. I refused repeatedly. I don't know, I don't dare, I can't. Julian's voice suddenly turned dangerous. Then I'll call Mrs. Song down right now. You know Eric is a show dog, right? I understood his threat and began to hesitate. Then why don't you go yourself? Besides, you're so close to her. How do I know you're not testing me? Julian scoffed. She never lets me stay overnight precisely to guard against me. Perhaps Julian was too frustrated or wanted to earn my trust. he revealed everything. He said that when Mr. Song was alive, Mrs. Song had repeatedly seduced him. After Mr. Song died, she used him to oust all the old partners and monopolized power. Initially, they agreed to a 30-70 split when they gained control of the company. But Mrs. Song then plotted against him, not only denying him his rightful shares, but also expelling him from the company. Then she used his mother's medical bills to threaten him, turning him into a kept lover. On the outside, Julian was glamorous, but behind the scenes, he didn't even have the right to stay overnight. Julian gripped my shoulder emotionally. What's the difference between people like us, after all? She doesn't consider either of us human. I was slightly moved and mumbled, but her computer has a password. I can't open it. Julian smiled. I know the password. Julian quickly recited a sequence of numbers. Tonight, I'll light fireworks. Everyone will go outside to watch. You stay inside under the pretense of cleaning and get the file. I was uneasy. But after you all leave, what if Mrs. Song finds out it was me? Julian gritted his teeth as if deciding something. I'll take you with me. I breathed a sigh of relief. Then that's fine. Julian said that after getting the documents, he would use them to threaten Mrs. Song into returning his rightful shares, then he would sell all the shares and vanish without a trace. I was filled with hope. So, will you take me with you? A hint of contempt flashed in Julian's eyes, but outwardly he remained resolute. Of course. After discussing the plan, we intended to separate and return to the villa. Who knew, as soon as I turned my back, I saw Mrs. Song standing there, watching us with cold eyes. What are you two doing? Damn it, my car trunk was still open. Mrs. Song's suspicious gaze shifted between me and Julian. I realized she was probably suspecting something between us. Then her eyes passed over us, straight into the car trunk. Faster than thought, I slammed the trunk shut with a thud asterisk. Damn it, Mrs. Song's anger was visibly soaring. She ordered, no explanations needed, open it. I was flustered, not knowing what to do, but Julian was completely unfazed. He even smiled brightly, approached, and gave her a kiss. Darling, don't ruin the surprise. I just asked her to help prepare a few things. For a moment, I found him impressive. On one hand, I thought he reacted quickly, truly formidable. On the other hand, I found it even more incredible that he dared to call someone 12 years older than him, darling. Mrs. Song's suspicion had not yet dissipated. All right, let's see what the surprise is. Saying that, she turned back towards the villa. I intended to take this opportunity to move Eric, but Julian disagreed. He was afraid I would flee, even threatening that if I dared to leave, he would tell Mrs. Song. Reluctantly, I had to hide in the basement for several hours, then reported to Mrs. Song that Eric was at the pet shop and the staff said to pick him up in the evening. Luckily, Mrs. Song didn't suspect anything. But the problem was I hadn't eaten anything since morning. Julian and Mrs. Song were grilling meat in the garden, the delicious aroma wafted everywhere. I hid in the basement, starving, with only a stiff, dead dog beside me. I wanted Julian to bring me food. He flatly refused. Don't cause trouble. Soon it was dark. Julian smiled and took Mrs. Song's hand. The surprise I prepared for you is in the garden. Mrs. Song let him lead her to the garden. I pretended to grab cleaning tools, then stealthily went upstairs, my heart pounding. Through the window, I saw everyone in the garden, so I pushed open the study door, but I discovered a new problem. The study had no curtains. As soon as I turned on the computer, light would stream through the window, and if Mrs. Song turned back, she would see someone in the study. Outside, a loud asterisk boom echoed. Brilliant fireworks shot into the sky, lighting up the night. An idea struck me. I took Mrs. Song's fur blanket and covered myself and the computer screen. The light was blocked inside the blanket. I confidently pressed the start button. The screen prompted, please enter password. I entered the password Julian gave me. The computer started successfully. I found the folder he mentioned and transferred the file to the USB. The file was very large. It needed 10 minutes to transfer. I was a bit anxious. The blanket was too warm. I even started sweating. So I crawled out from under the blanket. Outside the window, fireworks were dazzling. I couldn't resist stepping to the window. Mrs. Song was nestled against Julian's chest, while Julian kept glancing towards this window. Suddenly, in the silence, the door creaked. My heart almost stopped. Someone was turning the doorknob of the study. I quickly looked out to the garden. Mrs. Song was still there. My eyes scanned the crowd. 1, 2, 3. Miss Tang, Mrs. Song's closest relative. What was she doing here? I silently rushed back to the computer. Transfer progress, 30%, 7 minutes left. A low curse came from outside the door. Damn it, it's even locked. I breathed a sigh of relief. At least she wouldn't dare break the door down or call Mrs. Song. A minute passed, and the person outside the door gave up. The footsteps faded, but suddenly a dog barked loudly. I gasped, my eyes wide. The native dog was in the garden, barking furiously towards the study window. Mrs. Song's attention immediately shifted from the fireworks. There's someone in the study. The computer screen showed 5 minutes remaining. It would also take Mrs. Song about 5 minutes to go from the garden to the study, but that would leave me no time to retreat. Julian tried to delay her. My love, the climax of the fireworks is coming. I designed it myself. Aren't you going to watch it all? Mrs. Song hesitated for a moment, then shook her head. I'll go check the study first. I frantically urged the computer. Hurry, hurry, Mrs. Song is already in the villa. She went upstairs, calling me, Audrey, where are you? In a panic, I put the blanket back in its place and quickly unlocked the door. Immediately, footsteps stopped outside the door was pushed open with an asterisk click asterisk, and the lights came on. Mrs. Song stared at me. Audrey, what are you doing? I held up a stray cat, looking innocently at her. Ma'am, I just finished cleaning the study. I don't know which stray cat snuck in through the window. I held out the cat like a trophy. See, ma'am, I caught it. Mrs. Song frowned. It's disgustingly dirty. Get rid of it immediately. I had carefully chosen this stray cat. It wasn't just matted with fur, but also covered in dead fleas. Mrs. Song recoiled several steps, afraid the fleas would jump on her. That's it, her kindness was conditional. Only the obedient, clean, and gentle were worthy of her compassion. The lowly, filthy, and rude were not worth her attention. Actually, if Mrs. Song had touched the computer at that moment, she would have noticed that the casing was still warm, but she just left the room in disgust. I chased the cat away. Outside in the garden, Julian glanced at me, inquiring. I smiled and nodded, signaling that I had retrieved the item. Julian sighed, lowering his voice, meet me in the basement in half an hour. I pretended not to hear, walked past him, and approached Mrs. Song. Mrs. Song, the room is clean now. I'm going to pick up Eric. Mrs. Song nodded distractedly. Yes, go. Julian looked at me with an incredulous gaze, asking with his eyes, what are you doing? I replied with a gesture of my mouth, I've got leverage over you too. He shouldn't have trusted me, just as I never truly trusted him. He thought he could use Eric's death to threaten me into stealing secrets, but in reality, I was the one using him. I calmly drove the car, speeding through the yard. Rolling down the window, I yelled arrogantly towards Mrs. Song, Hey, there's a surprise in the kitchen. And that eyeball isn't human, it's your son Eric's. After one last look at Mrs. Song's astonished and terrified face, I burst into delighted laughter and sped out of the villa. I had unlocked the kitchen door. From afar, I could still faintly hear her frantic screams. Thinking of Mrs. Song scrambling to clean the kitchen, I couldn't stop laughing. One hand on the steering wheel, the other dialing a number. The document is sent, transfer the rest of the payment. I was a renowned commercial thief in the industry, famous for my success and high efficiency. This time was exceptionally brilliant. In just 3 days, I had obtained the client's required document. While waiting for the money to arrive, I calculated that after this payment, I could retire. I decided to travel the world first. On the other end of the line, Dong's voice rang out. Payment has been transferred. I squinted, looking at the 7-digit number on the screen, breathing a satisfied sigh. Hang up now. Dong quickly stopped me. Wait, how did you do it? Just 3 days, truly an industry legend? I laughed. Julian thought he was absolutely brilliant, wanting to use my fear to control me. But actually, before taking the job, I had thoroughly investigated Mrs. Song's network. I knew Julian wanted to reclaim what was his but couldn't find a weakness. So, on my first day, I immediately registered a social media account and posted about finding a good job. I hired an expert to push the post to Julian, then staged an accident. Julian saw a maid who wasn't very smart but had a weakness and was easy to exploit. So this fool directly gave me the password and even helped me stall Mrs. Song, giving me time to steal the document. But I didn't tell Dong about this. Dong was both angry and amused. You got someone else involved again, didn't you? Dong was my broker. We had been working together for a long time. He always criticized my methods, saying I often caused trouble for innocent people during my thefts. But at the same time, he couldn't do without me, his golden signboard. This time, no one was implicated, just a minor oversight that injured a dog. But I didn't make Eric grab that handsaw. I just starved him for a meal and smeared a little lard on the saw handle. On the other end, Dong still advised me with warnings about karma and such. But I just found him hypocritical, as if he wasn't the one receiving exorbitant commissions and broker fees. I impatiently hung up. The car drove through a mountain road with dense forests lining the sides. I suddenly thought, this is the perfect place to dispose of a body. So I stopped the car, carried Eric out of the trunk, and threw him into the forest. This place had many wild animals. Soon, Eric would be nothing but bones. I stumbled back to the car, breathing a sigh of relief and satisfaction. Lowering the window to welcome the night breeze, I gazed at the numbers that made my heart soar on the account. Sorry, Eric. Suddenly, a shiver ran down my spine, an unfounded premonition. Without thinking, I quickly started the car. But I hit the gas, and the car still hesitated. Almost simultaneously, I felt something dark and steaming outside the window. It got closer and closer, almost pressing against my face. A putrid stench assailed me. I suddenly remembered a story the old people in the village told when I was a child. The longer black bears live, the more they like to eat human eyeballs. They will catch people. Crash, the car door buckled. I screamed, trying to escape from the other side, but I was dragged out. They often pin their prey down with their rear. I heard my bones crack under the weight, then they use their barbed tongue to lick your eyeballs. 1, 2, until the eyeballs pop out of their sockets. I shrieked in pain, a violent agony spreading through my body, my phone falling to the ground. My last thought, what a pity, the account still had 7 digits. A few days later, Mr. Wu was driving, delivering meat, when the radio announced the news. Mrs. Song's company has declared bankruptcy. Former director Julian, suspected of commercial espionage, has been arrested. The Tang Group is affected, with its stock plummeting for 3 consecutive days. The body of an unidentified woman has been found in the suburban forest, with traces of wild animal bites. Citizens are advised to avoid entering the forest alone at night. Mr. Wu's car stopped in front of Mrs. Song's villa. At this moment, a haggard Mrs. Song stood watching people appraise the villa. Mr. Wu approached, holding something. Mrs. Song. Mrs. Song glanced at it, then immediately screamed. Ah, what the hell is this? The thing in Mr. Wu's arms whimpered. Mr. Wu quickly held it tight. It's like this, Mr. Wu explained. A few days ago, I was passing by the mountain road and found a dog struggling by the roadside. Its entire skull cap was missing, but it was still breathing. The more I looked, the more it resembled Eric. So I rummaged around and found a black plastic bag containing a skull cap and an eyeball. Mr. Wu took Eric to the veterinary hospital. The doctor shook his head. This dog truly has a strong will to live. They operated on him, pulling him back from the brink of death 3 times. Eric finally escaped danger. One eye was reattached. Although his vision was weak, he could still perceive light. Mrs. Song didn't even listen to the end, waving her hand in disgust. Take it away immediately. It looks like a monster. Eric seemed to understand, whimpering in pain. Mr. Wu scratched his head, timidly asking, Can I keep him then? Mrs. Song didn't even bother to speak, waving her hand in agreement. Mr. Wu picked up the dog, carefully placed him in the passenger seat, and buckled him in. He couldn't understand. Mrs. Song used to treat him like her own child, so why had her affections suddenly vanished? He stroked Eric's soft, fluffy tail. All right, you'll follow me from now on. Yes, let's start anew with a new name. Mr. Wu, being uneducated, scratched his ears and head, unable to think of a Western name. Just then, the radio played a Buddhist chant, giving him an idea. Then let's name you Nin. It says all beings in Jambidvipa, when they stir their minds or move their thoughts, are not without sin.